Good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. My name is Henry Babichenko. I'm the president of Stomadent Dental Lab in North America. 20 years ago, I went to vacation in Florida, and while visiting one of the theme parks, I was standing in line for a 30-second ride, and someone asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from Georgia." They're like, "Georgia?" We never knew Georgian have that type of an accent. And I'm like, "Well, it's Georgia in Europe." And they're like looking at me, "Georgia in Europe?" So there was a next person standing there and asking me, "Where are you from?" I'm thinking, well, they don't know where Georgia is. So I just said, "Boise, Idaho." They're like, "Boise, Idaho? What country is that?" Well, it was 20 years ago, and maybe Idaho was not on the map yet. But I do live right now in Boise, Idaho. I have 5 kids and beautiful wife, and we're really enjoying living here. So, well, our topic today is digital dentures. We are very excited about this topic. I know that digital dentures, they're new in the market, but we've been designing partials or digital partials for over 10 years. I think we were one of the first ones who started designing digital partials with sensible technology and was one of their beta labs. And it really worked for us. And I remember they came to us and asked, "What do you need for digital dentures?" It was about 10 years ago. So we talked about digital dentures, and finally they're here, and we're extremely excited why they're really working for us. And I'm hope that one day they're going to work for you as well. Before I'll get into my lecture, I like to remind you of my email. You can email your questions to support@stomadentlab.com. Again, support@stomadentlab.com. At the end of the lecture, I'll try to get to your questions, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. Today we're going to cover some of them questions like, is digital denture here to stay? Another one is digital denture as good as conventional dentures? We have been vigorously testing digital dentures with few of the providers on a daily basis and have effectively delivered hundreds of digital dentures. Therefore, now we strongly recommend digital dentures to our providers because it benefits them and it will benefit your patients as well. So what kind of benefits you will have from digital dentures? And I'll tell you what, they do fit better, no question about it. They look better, even though that's also number one questions, are they really look better? You really can customize the tooth library to your desired specification. You're not limited to a certain tooth library. You can really modify it. In other, it really reduces adjustment time by 80%. And also you can duplicate a digital denture, a quality denture, within 1 day. There are so many other benefits. We will not be able to cover all of them today. But the most asked question, or I would say number one asked question, by so many providers who call us, they would ask, what do I need in order to get into a digital dentures? And today we're gonna cover 4 clinical workflows for a digital dentures. Then we're gonna cover digital immediate dentures. We're also gonna cover the difference between printed digital dentures and milled digital dentures and when to choose one or the other, and relining digital dentures. A format of this lecture will be somewhat different. For a clinical workflow, we have pre-recorded clinical demonstration with Dr. Dunker and I on what lab requires from you as a clinician in order to provide you with the high quality digital removable restoration. So on a first, and we call a basic conventional workflow, on a first scenario, you will have a regular 4 appointments. Even though we're talking about digital dentures, but you take a regular conventional impression. On a second appointment, you will receive a conventional bite rinse to establish your vertical dimension and centric relationship. On a third appointment, there's going to be something slightly different. It's going to be a printed digital TryIn, and on a fourth appointment, it's a delivery appointment. So let's go into the conventional impression, taking conventional impression, and we have some recommendations. And let's take a look at the demonstration.
Okay, Henry, with all this digital stuff going on, what do I need certain things for digital, since a lot of stuff has changed from when a lot of us have been in school? So what do we need to maybe change or modify? What things do we need?
Well, the good thing is that there's some digital workflows that will work for every office. Let's say you don't have a digital scanner.
Okay.
You just use your conventional way of taking impressions.
Okay.
Sure, you can do that. So on a first appointment, take a conventional impression. We don't recommend alginate just due to the accuracy.
Correct.
But the trick to take a nice impression for a digital denture is that I recommend to many offices, you take a tray, if it's a dentulous patient. First, you take a heavy body material and place around the borders and a little bit on a palate. And then place into a patient mouth.
Okay.
And you will receive, after when you place in a patient mouth, you can do a border molding, and that's what will come out. It is more like a custom tray.
Okay.
We do want to have some vents right here, so next when you're going to place a more of a light body material, so the material can escape down and your tray would not be dislodged.
So once again, a more accurate.
More accurate. So once again, what you can do, this is of a medium body impression material.
Okay.
You place inside of this tray, and you can go ahead and place in a patient mouth, and then do some of the border molding by pulling on patient lips and cheeks. When you place that, if you're not satisfied with a final impression, you can do this. This is an extra light body impression. You place it slightly on a palate and also around the vestibule area or a border tray, and go ahead, place in a patient mouth and see how well it fits.
Yes.
It gives this perfect fit and perfect retention. You can try this impression.
Let's try it here. Let's see what we got. Okay, now we'll remove it. That is tight. Nice suction, nice seal.
And you just saw that we had a pretty good suction, and I do recommend to use an IQ-Seal Ultra Plus, that material sold by Dent Supply. If you like to use an alginate impression, the only impression we recommend is use an AccuDent impression. I think it's sold by Ivoclar nowadays. That AccuDent alginate impression gives you a perfect impression. So next step, it's establishing vertical dimension. So let's take a look on what type of a tricks do we suggest in order to provide a stable bite every time.
Here we are at the second appointment. This is the one that sometimes would give me a little bit of startle sometimes. It's where we get the wax rims or the bite registration. Now, normally we would do this, you know, with wax, and you'd try to adjust in the mouth and this type of thing. So, Henry, is there a modification that we can do to maybe get this a little bit more accurate and better for us?
Sure, sure. But the good thing about it is that you can see that this is just a regular conventional bite trims. Because like we said, you don't have a digital scanner, but
Correct.
you want to have a digital denture. So on a second appointment, we do provide you with a regular bite blocks for you to establish vertical dimension. But the tricks that in order to get a nice vertical dimension and a centric relationship is that you do want to modify this bite block slightly. We see many times when a provider receives the bite trims, they just place in a patient mouth and take a bite registration and said, here we go.
Here you're done.
Yeah, and then we received and we set the teeth according to that bite block, and they go to us, why are the bites so much open? Well, number one, you want to make sure you bring patient to a proper vertical dimension. Number two, you want to modify the bite block by removing some of the anterior portion of a wax. And the reason why, because when a dentures patient, you're going to ask him to bite, most likely they're going to try to bite with those front teeth, and they're going to shift their jaw forward. By removing a wax, patient will know they only will be able to bite on the posterior portion of a bite block, and therefore they would displace their jaw back. Or if they still don't do that, you can ask them while they're closing their mouth, they can swallow. When they swallow, our jaw automatically retracts back, and they will give you nice central relationship in those bite blocks. Another trick, what you want to do, you want to remove the wax from the most posterior side of a retromoral pad. Why is that so? It's because when a patient gonna bite down, and if they hit strong right here on most posterior portion of a bite block, it's gonna dislodge the tray and move it forward, and you might not see it. You just think, well, I got nice bite, but the bite is off. So therefore, remove the most posterior side of a wax so that when a patient closes their jaw down, the wax is only on a second premolar to a first molar. Therefore, it's going to push upper plate into the palate and a lower plate where the first molars are. And you will get a perfect, stable vertical dimension.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So plus to what you just on establishing vertical dimension, we also recommend that you would place a lower bite block into the warm water, warm to hot water. You want to make sure that this wax is pliable and soft enough where when patients try to close upper and lower jaw together, they're not trying to find in a bite because maybe one side is slightly higher. So you place your lower bite rim into the warm water and let patient gently bite, and they will feel like both sides are hitting evenly, and then you take and register their bite. So next appointment after when you took a bite and established vertical dimension, you will receive a printed TryIn. That's probably something different than what you get used to it, but very basic. Let's take a look at it on how to do a digital TryIn and how to do any kind changes or modification to it.
Okay, as today we've come back and we have the what they would be called the wax TryIn at this time. As you know, these have like we're working with digital. This is basically what we get back. And so, Henry, what do we have here?
Well, Dr. Dunker, this is a digital TryIn, as you see. The good thing, it's not going to be part of a final denture.
Okay.
So what it's mean, you can do any kind of modification to it. You can write to us the changes you want to do, and we can follow it and go onto our computer and do the changes. Or you can grab a burr and your handpiece and you can grind the length of a teeth to your desired dimensions. Another step, what you can do, you can add a wax if you want to add a lip support and you want to show us how much you want to add.
Okay.
You can add a wax. What will happen in the lab, they will scan those changes and they can change the setting to your desired change, modified TryIn.
So once again, this is not the final denture.
This is not a final denture. It's going to be thrown away after when we finish recording those changes.
Okay.
So that's why you might receive this TryIn even in a different color. A lot of times those TryIn comes in shade A2 or A3 because that's not a final product, not a final material.
Okay.
Just the TryIn for you to check the mold of a teeth, the length of a teeth, a lip support. And if you do like that, you can just write to a lab, process and finish. In the lab, what they're gonna do, they either gonna print a denture or mill a denture, and we'll talk about the difference between printed and mill denture later.
Okay, so once again, we can either do the modifications on here or write them down.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds good.
So as you just saw how to modify that TryIn, but another reminder, let's say if a patient gave you an incorrect bite in a second appointment and you want to correct the bite, you always want to grind those posterior teeth either on upper or lower jaw, because if you're not going to do that and you're just going to take a new bite, it's most likely going to raise your bite slightly. So you grind the teeth about 1 to 2 millimeter and you take another bite registration, and then we'll be able to get this and scan it and upgrade a new bite. So let's take a look at the delivery appointment.
Today is our delivery appointment for our digital dentures. We have them right here, as we can see. And Henry, tell us a little bit of what you've given us here.
So, well, Dr. Dunker, you've ordered the milled base and milled teeth.
Right.
This is the premium denture.
Okay.
So therefore, this was milled from 2 different parts. There is a base part, and then there is a teeth material from 5 different layers. As you can see that there is a translucency, transparency, and we will be able to zoom it in so you can see better.
Right.
But anyway, you can try to fit them in and see how well they fit. As remember, the impression we had was
Correct.
a great impression. Let's see if it's transferred into the final product.
Let's find out. Vlad's probably excited.
Yeah.
Okay. So far, great. Looky there. Very good. Very good.
And as you can see, if you try to remove this denture, it's nice and stable. And even sometimes you get the retention off of the lower denture.
Yeah. I remember how tight the impression was the first time. Yeah, look at that. Very good. Sorry.
So I do believe that digital dentures is a future, and it's good to get into them right now because number one, they give you much better fit. Number two, let's say a patient lost a denture. You can give us a call and said, can I get a denture without me taking impression?
That's right.
Sure.
You have the digital imprint.
Yeah, we have the digital design already.
That's
so
right.
what we can do, we can either reprint or remill a denture. So if you thought that maybe patient looked miserable, well, that's my father-in-law. Sometimes he can pretend that, but he really loves his dentures. They really work for him. And he had already few sets of dentures, and that's the digital dentures, he said, works the best for him. So that was the first scenario on basic workflow. Let's say you do have right now a digital scanner. How can it change your workflow? And most of the digital scanners nowadays, they're adequate enough even to take a soft tissue image. So when it comes to what type of a digital scanner, you can do your own research, but most of them should work well enough. So let's move into a second workflow when provider do have right now an intraoral digital scanner. And same thing, so on a second scenario, you take, well, in this case, you have to take a digital impression. Second appointment gonna be bite blocks to establish vertical dimension. Third appointment, printed TryIn and a delivery. So let's take a look at it at this scenario.
Well, today we're going to discuss how we use this digital scanner, and we've asked Henry to help us out here and to show us what we need to do. So Henry, here we go.
Well, Dr. Dunker, great. I mean, you're really getting into digital,
we're modifying here.
Now you got digital, now you got digital scanner.
Okay.
So let's talk about the workflow where you already have a scanner.
Okay.
It's not that big of a change from the first workflow that we demonstrated.
Okay.
But in here, you have Medit 500. Some people have 3Shape. There is many other companies. But what you do on the first appointment, you now, instead of taking regular impression, you take a digital impression.
Okay.
You can have representative who sold you this intraoral scanner.
Okay.
They can demonstrate and show you the workflow and teach you, but it's very basic. So what you do, based on a recommendation of each company, you follow the instruction, but most likely, first you take the upper impression, you want to retract the lips and cheeks from patient mouth, make sure the mouth is dry,
okay.
And you just start taking the impression from the patient's upper jaw, and then you take lower jaw.
Okay.
Then when you took the impression, you send those files to the lab.
Okay.
And in a lab, what we're gonna do, we're gonna print those models from the digital resin, and I'll show you how they come out when you will receive, for your next appointment, you will receive a printed models with a regular bite trims.
Okay.
The next procedure for a second appointment, as we showed before, you establish the vertical dimension, the centric relationship. For the third appointment, you will receive the digital printed TryIn, do any kind necessary modification. It will be changed to your description, and then after that you order a printed or milled denture. So in reality, what changed in this workflow is that instead of using the PVS impression to take a conventional impression, you're using a digital impression, but the rest of appointments are the same.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So I do understand that one of the asked questions is how accurate are digital impressions compared to the conventional impressions. So let's take a look on how accurate the digital impressions.
So this is still accurate?
Yes. Like I said, there is a debate about it. But when you take in digital impression, it's a mucostatic impression. What it's mean that when you take in a digital impression, you do not compress the soft tissue or do not deform it.
Right.
And therefore, even though you cannot get the functional impression, but because it's a mucostatic impression, it gives you as good retention or a stable fit as with a functional impression. The functional impression, yeah, it does give you those border molding, but it loses slightly of this stability due to the soft tissue compression. Yeah, and that's why in the end result, both methods showed the same type of a retention and stability of an end product.
So actually, this is showing maybe more of a actual relaxed state.
Sure. Yes,
is what it would
right.
be. A more relaxed state instead of under a little bit of tension, so to speak.
That's right. And that's why it's called mucostatic impression, because it's show you the actual position of a soft tissue in a patient mouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not under a load.
Yes.
Very good.
So as you saw that you can take as accurate impression using digital impression as maybe using a conventional impression system. Next workflow, we're going into a triple tray workflow. A triple tray workflow gives you an extremely accurate impressions and bite, but you'll see that you'll be able to modify or change your triple tray workflow from a first scenario or second scenario. And let's take a look at it at the triple tray workflow. Same thing, well, it should be a workflow number 3, a slight mistake, and looks like I have this painful look in me. Maybe something was not working out for me, but anyway. So on a triple tray workflow, you do take a conventional impression or you can take a digital impression. Then you'll get a regular bite rims to establish vertical dimension, print a TryIn, and a delivery. But let's take a look when you switch to a triple tray workflow and why.
Henry, we've talked about what is this workflow that they talk about and possibly the triple tray?
Very good question. Triple tray workflow, that's a third scenario.
Okay.
I think it's a great workflow. We really love this type of a workflow because of the accuracy of a bite and impression. So for a triple tray workflow, you can take either a conventional impression or you can take a digital impression. But let's say you were not really satisfied with the impression, or you think, well, there could be a better impression. Don't worry about it. You send those impressions to the lab, either digital or conventional impression.
Okay.
You receive bite blocks to establish vertical dimension.
Right.
Go through the normal procedure, establish lip support, vertical dimension. When patient is in a satisfied position, then what you do, you load the bite base plate with a PVS material. First you load your upper, place into a patient mouth, and ask them to work through their muscles by pulling down the lip or cheeks down, and it will give you the functional impression.
Okay.
Then you do same thing for a lower jaw.
Okay.
They give you functional impression on the lower jaw. Then you take a centric relationship with a blue moose bite or any kind of material you like to use. Now when it comes to the lab, it comes in a triple tray form.
Oh.
We scan all of this. We scan the upper impression, a lower impression, in a solid centric relationship bite.
Okay.
This gives a very accurate impression and a bite. So when we scan all of that, we design a denture to your specifications. And for your third appointment, we send you a digital printed TryIn.
Okay.
So the next step are the same. So to summarize, is that in the first appointment, you either take the digital impression or conventional impression.
Okay.
For a second appointment, you receive a regular bite rims. You establish the vertical dimension and all of the same type of procedures you did before.
Correct.
Then you take like a reline impression to get the functional impression on the upper and lower jaw. Take a bite, send back to the lab, and next appointment receive a TryIn. And after TryIn, if everything looks good, you order the final. Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
So that's a triple tray workflow.
Appreciate you
And we
explaining it.
really love this workflow because the accuracy of this workflow is great.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome. So for many offices, triple tray workflow becomes their standard workflow. Why? Because on a first appointment, they just take like a preliminary impression, even with alginate, and they just will get a bite trims on a second appointment and will always take a functional impression and convert into a triple tray. And the reason I said it gives you an extremely accurate impression because on a first or second workflow, you still make a bite trims on a cast that you already have, and there's a possibility you're going to scratch a cast or a small chipping type of a scenario. Where on triple tray, you took in a functional impression, we scan it, and next you receive the TryIn and then final dentures. So that's why it's a really very nice workflow. The fourth scenario, it's using existing dentures in a workflow. That's another a very nice scenario. Why? Because it's will minimize your appointments. And even though right here we do list intake and impression, then scan, triple tray, printed, TryIn, delivery, but in many cases you actually can just take impression using dentures and the next appointment delivery. But let's take a look at it on this workflow.
Henry, what if our patients already have dentures? Is there some way we can maybe shorten up a few steps, or what do you recommend? What would be a good way?
Sure, Dr. Dunker. If patient have already existing dentures, what you do is just take like a reline impression,
okay,
and get the functional impression of upper jaw,
okay,
lower jaw. Then if you need to open them slightly vertically, you can use either wax or blue mousse material to open them slightly. Then when you already have this impression, almost like a triple tray impression, what you do, there's a couple steps. If you already have a scanner, then you can grab your intraoral scanner,
okay,
and you can scan each denture with an impression inside and outside. You scan the upper impression first, you scan the lower impression, then you scan those dentures with an impression in a bite, and now you'll have a file using all dentures like a triple tray.
Oh.
And what you can do, you can send this file right to the lab, and they either can print you a TryIn or mail you a digital denture. And in 2 appointments, you can provide patient with a final product. If you're not sure and you still want to do a TryIn, you can order print me a TryIn.
Right.
If you're pretty confident, patient like their denture, just open and slightly bite, we can copy those dentures and print a final product.
Very good.
So that's also a very, very nice way of doing a good set of dentures in practically 2, well, maybe 3 appointments, but you can do in 2 appointments. Really nice. Or let's say if patient have existing dentures, but you don't have a scanner, what you can do, you can take impression, like we said, almost like a triple tray impression using existing dentures. You can send to the lab for them to scan all of that and ask them to, if they can bring in those dentures back the same day or maybe next day. Now they have impressions, they have vertical dimension, central relationship, provide them a shade. They either can print a denture or mill a denture or print a TryIn for you.
And once again, see, the patient doesn't go without.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
That's a very nice workflow. That's a 4th scenario that we suggest.
That's very good.
Yeah. So, and as you saw, when we're talking about this workflow, and you can provide dentures into appointments, we're talking about a quality dentures, like a premium or signature dentures, because you took the impression, sent to the lab, they designed dentures, they can mail to you dentures from a 5-layer pack, and you receive the digital signature dentures in 2 appointments. So a very nice workflow. Let's talk about digital immediate dentures. That's actually where really digital helps to dental industry. And let's take a look at digital immediate dentures.
Henry, one other question. What about immediate dentures? How would we work with something like that?
Oh, Dr. Dunker, you will like a digital workflow for the immediate dentures. That's one of the best things I think can be for the digital dentures. For immediate dentures, you either can use an intraoral scanner to take the impression,
Right.
take a bite. Even if a patient have only one posterior tooth on each side, as long as they can close down, you can already right away take the impression, establish bite, send those files to the lab. They can go ahead and get you a digital denture. Or you can use a conventional impression, take impressions, establish a bite, send everything to lab, and they can finish a digital denture. Why is digital denture better than conventional denture? Because when we received a file or regular impression, we scan those impressions, we digitally remove those teeth, we digitally can do any kind of blackout or relief.
For like undercuts, this type
For
of thing?
undercuts,
Bone
yes.
removal?
Yes.
Type of thing?
Yes.
Pretty
And
good.
as you understand that a lot of times when patients receive a digital dentures where they get a lot of sore spots over the canine areas,
Correct.
we automatically know that would blackout with like a 0.4 millimeter relieve this area. So when you receive a denture, everything blacked out, relieved, it fits perfect. Those who try those digital dentures, they said they really love them. And you can ask for a printed denture, which is going to be more like an economy, if you like to replace. Or if you want to use as a final product and appliance, you will ask for a mill denture. It's going to work really nice, and you will love an immediate digital dentures. They for sure will fit better, less adjustments. There is no question about it. Most clinicians would tell when they start using digital dentures, their adjustments were cut by 80%, and they really tried that. And I really believe that the adjustments cut by 80%.
Well, and like we were talking about before, it all starts with that ear impression.
It
Very much.
It does.
Very much.
Very nice.
Yes. I'm sold.
Yeah, great. Dr.
Thank you.
Dunker. Yeah, and actually Dr. Dunker is sold because he delivering many digital dentures right nowadays. But another question is, when do I choose milled dentures over printed digital dentures? And let's take a look at it. What's the difference between milled and printed digital dentures? Well, right now I do like to talk about how good are digital dentures and what's the difference between the printed dentures and a milled denture. So when you choose, at the end, you're going to have an option to choose either printed denture or milled denture. In our office, if it's a printed denture, it's either a transitional economy denture or maybe a basic denture. I mean, the dentures, they look great. They do fit better than the conventional denture. Why is that so? Well, when we do a conventional denture, and as you know that we will use the polymer and monomer to make a denture acrylic, there is a couple different methods to either pack the acrylic or inject the acrylic. And we do have one of the best injection systems. We have an Ivocopic injection system. We have a Colzer injection system. But when you inject acrylic into the mold and when it starts curing, there is a 2.5% of shrinkage to that material. So what is going to happen, it will result in poor fitting denture. In most cases, when a patient has great gums, then you still get this desired retention
But if a patient doesn't have good gums, then what happens is that patient have no retention. Why? Because doesn't matter if everything went perfectly, then there is that 2.5% of a shrinkage to the material. Plus, when you pour the model, there's some shrinkage as well. When you print a denture from a printed resin, there is only 1% of a shrinkage to that material. So the result will be that the denture will fit better. But like I said, in our office, if it's a printed denture, we consider it to be as more of an economy denture or a basic denture. So on a basic denture, if it's a printed teeth, we can go ahead and stain and glaze them, and that's how we like to do in here. So they still have this translucency type of illusion and look very nice and very natural, and we'll be able to show some of those samples to you. But if you want to do a premium denture, we would mill that denture instead of a printed denture. So when you mill a denture from an existing part, number one, the material is much more denser than what we can create in a lab. There is no injection system that will be able to give us this dense material like we're able to purchase the acrylic puck. And when we mill that denture from the acrylic puck, it is a regular methacrylate acrylic, so we can repair, we can reline with no problem. But because it's already a pre-made acrylic puck, when we mill that denture, there is 0% of shrinkage. The fit of that denture, when you'll try it, you'll be amazed. I mean, it fits so much better. Patients do have a lot less of an adjustment, and a lot of times if it's an adjustment, it's just because maybe some of the tissue that patient has is more bony, and therefore when denture settles down, it's just pushing on those bony tissue. But like I said, if we do recognize that patient have a lot of torics or bony tissue, we can go ahead and digitally do some of the blackout or relief, and then the result that you will have a denture that practically you would not have to adjust. It results in a happy patient. And so also when we mill the teeth from a pre-made puck, we order from Ivoclar a 5-layered or multi-layer puck. So therefore, we're able to choose the different type of translucency in your teeth. And when the teeth are milled, they look fantastic. We actually, for one of the patient, we created a mill denture, and then we created a denture using a Funara signature teeth, a conventional denture. Well, and her father is a dentist, so he was able to really criticize those dentures. And I told them the second pair of denture will make it no charge, but they'll be able to choose whatever they wanted, what they think looks better and feels better. So on a conventional method, I've used the best material possible, best acrylic, best signature teeth. And then for our mill denture, we've used also an Ivoclar puck and a multi-layer puck, and we mill the base and mill the teeth. In the end result, they choose in a mill teeth. Why? Because they do look better. The translucency of a tooth was more apparent. It had life into it, and we're really excited. They do look better than actually the teeth that we're able to order. And we'll show you some of those examples so you can judge for yourself. But we're very excited about the digital dentures.
And you know, if you do hear some of the background noise, it's because we are milling digital dentures right now. And I'll tell you what, that's the only employees that I don't have to pay overtime. They can work through the night. And you come in the morning and here you go, those dentures are milled already. So that's a huge convenience for us as a lab. But I do want to let you know that we still do more of a conventional dentures, because for a removable lab, we consider it to be in the Northwest large lab, and we still do conventional dentures, so we can really compare them. And right now, I think digital do look better and fit better. So another questions that most doctors would ask me, well, how do you rely on those digital dentures? And let's take a look. And right here we have again Dr. Dunker and Dr. Haas, and they've been doing digital dentures already for half a year, and it's been working for them. And so let's hear that.
You've asked me before also the difference between printed and mill denture, and also how you choose or how you order them. A printed denture will cost less to you, so therefore we almost anticipate in the office it's going to be either like an economy denture or a basic denture. If you want something more like a premium signature denture, then that's when you ask for the mill denture. It will fit better. I believe it looks better, and it will last longer, that's for sure. So that's also the difference, which one you order at certain time. And you know, a lot of times patients use immediate denture more of a temporary or transitional set. So it's mean you would order a printed, and then later when you do a second set of dentures, then you can go ahead and do the mill denture. But if you do feel that this immediate denture would be a permanent denture for a patient, in 6 months you can reline that denture, take a regular impression, no changes. It mills from the regular acrylic, methacrylate acrylic. So if we will reline with regular acrylic, it's going to have a chemical bond and no problem. When it comes to a printed denture, it is a different type of a material. It's more like an eclipse. It's a non-allergic material as well. So therefore, we can reline with a regular acrylic. What lab usually will do, will remove, during the reline, you can remove almost as much acrylic as you want it, or that resin as you want it, and just inject as much of a reline material, and that's how you still can reline a printed denture as well.
So basically the same procedures as we did before, you can do the same with these.
Same procedure, nothing changed.
So another question, I know that many doctors actually call me and ask me, how do you take vertical dimension using an intraoral scanner? And I know that there's some tricks that you can use to take the vertical dimension, but at this time, we do not suggest, because sometimes the bite does not come so accurate, and therefore there's so many retries. So at this time, let's take a look and hear what we suggest when it comes to taking bite with intraoral scanner.
So the most asked question, if it's an edentulous patient, how do you register a bite? Can you do digitally? At this stage, there are some methods, but they can be very difficult, very confusing. So we do suggest that you use a regular bite trim to register a bite. Or if a patient do have existing dentures, use their existing denture to take impression and register a bite. So you still do a regular method to take a patient vertical dimension and centric relationship. When it comes to a digital immediate dentures, you can go ahead, take the digital impression and digitally register a bite. Even if a patient have few teeth that in occlusion, that's enough for us to receive a bite and create you a digital denture from that point.
So, and next we're just gonna skip the printing dentures, but I tell you what, if you've tried digital dentures before and it did not work for you, because there was a time it did not work for us as well. We tried many other printers, and finally we found something that's really working well for dentures. There's other printers work well for other like restoration partials, but you have to have the right equipment. So if you did try it before, digital dentures did not fit, happened to us before, right now it's working really well for us. And so, and we'll just skip some of those things. I think most of the information we have covered already. And
So,
and right now we're going to have time for questions and answers. But if you will have more questions later, you'll be able to contact me. Here's the information. But at this time, we'll take maybe this 10 minutes for question and answer as well.
So the first question is, how do you verify shade in a TryIn?
So, yeah, in a TryIn, you cannot really verify the shade because usually TryIn material will come in like A2 or A3 shade. You can request that they'll print you in exactly from same shade that you required, but don't worry about it because we usually tell to patient it's gonna come later in a real shade. But if you really want it, lab to print you TryIn from a real shade, they can do that.
Okay. Dr. Garrett is asking, in your experience, are mandibular printed dentures more prone to fracture than traditional processed resin dentures?
So when it comes to printed dentures, depends on material. We did find out that some material tend to fracture. Right now, we're able to find material that does not fracture, and the thickness of a material is extremely important. But when it comes to a milled lower denture, it's way stronger than the conventional denture, so that's not going to be an issue on a milled denture.
So Dr. Peterson is asking, what was your impression material of choice again? And what was the alginate you liked that would also work?
So the impression material we like to use, it's an IQ-Seal Plus. I think Dent Supply selling that material, Ultra Plus, IQ-Seal Ultra Plus by Dent Supply. But the alginate material that works really well, and pretty much everyone will suggest you, the only alginate material, it's an AccuDent material. I think right now it's sold by Ivoclar. If it's in Europe, it's by Condelor Dental.
So, and Curtis was asking, rather than using a tactile, can you use a pin tracing device? Use the digital steps? Do you use Facebook?
You know, you can use Facebook, but this time we were trying to present very basic workflows. So most dentists can get into digital dentures. So next time when we're going to have a lecture on digital dentures over the implants, that's when we can go into Facebook and more of a complicated systems.
So Dr. Hung is asking, what about doing immediate dentures with patients who has no posterior support?
So with no posterior support, you do have to ask for the bite rims and establish vertical dimension using bite rims.
So Dr. Ibrahim was asking, he's saying, I didn't get the video part. Can you repeat it? A vertical dimension.
Oh, on a vertical dimension, establishing vertical dimension. So if it's an immediate dentures, as long patient have some posterior contact on either one or two teeth, you already will be able to get vertical dimension using the intraoral scanner. But if you are not using intraoral scanner, then you have to use a bite rim. There is another very important question I see, and I do like to answer. And the asked question is, when digital or when the impression comes to the lab, do we recommend to scan the impression? And at this stage, no. Even though we do have the best scanners, we have 3Shape 4E scanner, that's their latest scanner. But when we scan that impression, if it's for a crown or full dentures, yeah, in most cases it do work. when it's to construct like a removable partial. Sometimes a scanner cannot get those undercuts, and it start pretty much faking it, that image, and therefore when we compare and contrast, there was some distortion, and we've tried on many patients. That's when partials did not fit well. So the only scenario we suggest, either you take a digital impression, send to the lab for them to design the partial, or you actually, if you take a regular impression, you put the model and you scan the model. So that's the two best scenarios that really worked for dental offices and dental labs as well.
So Dr. Nasreen is asking, what's your recommendation for disinfecting dentures before TryIn and delivering to patients?
Well, today, like I said, that's not the topic of disinfection, and maybe we're going to have some other topics. And I like to maybe answer some of the questions that relate to a digital dentures at this time. But you do take a same type of precautions as with a regular material or acrylic material.
And Dr. Javier is asking, can a doctor order an internal relieving of the entire finished product of a digital denture by a fraction of a millimeter, such that it allows the clinician to reline it in a chair for better suction fit?
Yes, that's a really good question, because we can relieve under the denture as much as you will require, either 1 millimeter, 0.5, or even some spots we can relieve if you want to, maybe only some spots. That's a really easy, and you can just either draw on the lap slip where you want to relieve, or the entire denture. Yeah, that's very doable and very easy actually.
And I guess one last question from Dr. Mashrefi, and she's asking, hello, is there an application to prescribe lab orders?
Yeah, pretty much it's a lab slips. If it's Stomadent Dental Lab, you can go to their website, Stomadent Dental Lab, and you can actually fill out the lab slip either online or request the lab slips. And sure, you can then request a digital denture, but it's the same lab slip as for other dentures or other type of restoration. You just request digital and then request milled or printed.
And Dr. Kwandla is asking, does digital impression work for RPD fabrication? If yes, will it be like a wall blast?
Yes, for RPD, digital impressions work really well. That's probably will be the best fitting impressions or restoration from digital impression. There is no distortion by putting a model, and doing digital partials for over 10 years, digital impressions greatly improve the fit of those digital partials.
So that is about all the time we have today. If you have any further questions, please email us at support@stomadentlab.com or give us a call, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. And also, we'll send you a copy of the recording just if you need to look back. But if you have any questions for procedures, or you need help in any of the procedures that you saw, then please contact us and we'll be happy to help you.
And thank you very much. And next lecture that we're preparing, it's actually digital overdentures, and it's all on 4 or all on 6. So be prepared for that as well. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for attending this webinar. Due to the high traffic, we are staggering access to the CE exam to improve your user experience. We will be emailing you a link to your CE exam. Please allow 2 hours to receive the link. If you do not receive the email, you can access your CE exam at any time in the future following the 2-hour period. Simply log in, click CE in Progress or My Account, click on the webinar title, and take the CE exam. Thank you, and have a nice evening.